Hey guys, I'm Keith, the keyboard instructor here at Worship Online. I've been playing live keys and synths for many years now in different churches and worship teams. One of the hardest things to do is choosing which gear to buy when building your keyboard rig. So I wanted to show you some of the different gear that I use for live keyboard playing, as well as what I use for Worship Online keyboard tutorials. We also have a second video. We're going to go over software and what gear is required to use some of the software that I've been using. So if you want that video, feel free to click the link below this video, enter your email address, and we'll send that right to you. So let's get into it. So the first thing you'll need to do when building a keyboard rig is choose what keyboard or controller you're going to be using. So depending on whether you're using a software-based rig or if you want a rig with built-in sounds on your keyboard will depend on which keyboard you choose. So in my case, I decided to do both. Here I'm using the Kawai MP7, and this is the best of both worlds for me because it works as a controller to control the software on my computer, which I'm going to get into that on our second video, but it also works as a standalone keyboard as a backup in case I need it. So a couple of reasons why I chose this keyboard. This action uses the real Hammer 2, and the reason why it's great is because it basically feels like a real keyboard, like an upright or a grand piano. It's as close as you're probably going to get in this particular price range. And I wanted something that felt really natural while playing piano things. If I was playing a lot of synths and less piano, I would probably choose an action that had a little bit of lighter touch and not as heavy. But for this, I like the heavier action. Another reason why I chose this particular model is because it also has mod wheels and pitch bend, which can be assigned. So a lot of times I'm modulating a sound either by opening or closing a cutoff filter or by raising and lowering volumes. And so these two, the modulation wheel and the pitch bend, can be self-assigned to anything that you need. So most of the time I'll assign the modulation wheel to my cutoff filter and I'll leave the pitch bend on pitch bend. Now with a keyboard like this, we have a lot of buttons on it, but those are for controlling the built-in sounds on this keyboard. So if I want more control over my sound, I'll also need a second controller. So what I have up here is the Korg Nano Control 2, and this, every button on it is mappable. So if I have a sound that's using 3 or 4 layers, I can assign each of those layers to one of these faders. So for example, on this piano sound that I'm using, I have the first fader mapped to the piano volume. And then I have the third fader and the fourth fader mapped to delay and reverb. It's nicer to have that right at my fingertips instead of having to reach over to my computer every time I need to change those settings. And there's plenty of knobs to add whatever you need, extra compression, delay, other sounds. I also have these first two buttons set to switch between the different patches that are on my computer. So if I'm playing a piano sound first, I can then hit this switch button, and now I have a synth sound. So this allows me to switch between each sound conveniently without reaching over to my computer, and I don't have the ability with the keyboard alone to switch between those sounds. So having this controller up here lets me really have a lot of flexibility with manipulating my sound. Now in the case that my computer should fail or the software should stop working, I can easily use the built-in audio on this keyboard to cover that dead space and keep playing. So I can make sure that I'm muted on my computer and then raise up the volume on this keyboard, and I'm right back into it again with a piano sound. Now the cool thing about the built-in sounds on this is they're fully editable, and we also can switch between presets. So I have my piano. I can switch to the electric piano. We have a couple different kinds of organs, and then strings as well. And then pads if you need something more ambient. So you got a lot of options in case your computer fails or my software stops working. And now the other great reason that I love this keyboard, and this really just comes up to personal preference, is this is a full 88 key keyboard. So no matter what I'm playing, I never have to switch octaves or play something lower than it should be or higher than it should be. I have the full range to work with here, which is really great for playing some of these songs, say done by Planet Shakers or Hillsong, that use a lot of different layers, where I'm playing, say, pulsing bass notes in the left hand and then high leads in the right. We have tons of space to work with. Now, one of the only downsides of the Kawai MP7 is probably its weight, because if you're needing to travel around a lot and you're going to be moving your keyboard frequently, you can. It's just a little bit heavier, so it's harder to work with and can tire you out. So if I'm traveling, my favorite thing to take with me is this Axiom 61. Now, a couple reasons why I really like this one. It's 61 keys, so I took out the insides of a guitar case, and this fits perfectly in there, same length as a guitar, so it doesn't take much space up in my car if I need to travel around. Now, this is a shorter keyboard, so a couple things that are different. I will have to use an octave shift, say if I'm needing to play a lower piano part in a song. I would use that octave shift to make sure that I'm playing in the right register. Similarly, if I'm using a lead line, I would have to octave shift up to make sure that I have all of the keys that I need to play that song. Now, the action on this keyboard is much lighter and springier than the Kawai MP7. So this is really great for synth leads and stuff like that. So if I'm using both keyboards together, this is really great because I get the best of both worlds. I have the heavier action for piano-based stuff and this lighter action for synth-based stuff. Now, like we mentioned on the Kawai, we also pair it with that Korg Nano control so we can have the full range of controls to manipulate our sound. The awesome thing about this Axiom is it has all that built right into it. So we've got the mod wheel for, say, changing our cutoff filters or other effects. We have our pitch bend, but then we also have a ton of faders for mapping to either sound volumes or our reverb or delay or things like that. We even have buttons below it that can be used to mute different sounds or activate different effects. And then similar to the Korg Nano control, we can map the rest of these to do whatever we want. So I'll usually map, say, this top drum pad to being a tap tempo for delay. So if I'm in the middle of a song and I need to have the correct tempo set for something, just tap it out and we're good to go. And then I use the final two pads to switch up and down between the sounds that I'm using. Now, like I said, this is a really lightweight keyboard, so it's really easy to transport and makes for really easy setup and teardown. The downside of that is it's lightweight because there are no built-in sounds. So you don't have a failsafe to fall back onto in case your computer dies. This is only functioning as a controller, so it only makes sound based off of what's on your computer. Now, these two keyboards are not the only two that you have to choose from when building your keyboard rig. If you see in some of the other videos that I've done on worshiponline.com, I use the Nord Stage 2, which is a fantastic keyboard. Has basically the exact same functionality as this keyboard, just has a lot of the premier Nord sounds, and it has a really good feel. I like it a lot. Some other keyboards that I've used that I've really enjoyed are the Yamaha CP4 and the Yamaha CP40. Both of those are very similar to the Kawai in that they can be used as a controller to control the sounds on my computer, but they also have built-in sounds as a failsafe in case my software or computer dies. For the 61 key controller, we also have tons of different options. You have M Audio, Akai, Axiom. Pretty much everyone makes a version of these lightweight synth controllers that you can use as controllers only. So they won't have built-in sounds, but they work great for being really portable. They also have a couple different versions of the Nano control. There's the first one that the Korg came out with, and there's a couple other brands. I believe Akai has one that pretty much have the same function. You just want something that has enough controls on it to do what you need to do when controlling your sounds. So whether you need a lot of faders for volume, or if you need a lot of buttons for muting different effects or changing sounds, whatever you need, that's usually what I would go for. So choosing your controllers is only the first part of building a keyboard rig. In the second video, we're going to talk about the different software that you can use with your controllers and what gear is required to make that software work. So if you haven't already, feel free to enter your email address below this video by clicking the link, and then we'll send that second video right to you. See you there.